industry is you've got to have a strong science foundation upon which you can build your application of policy. But if you don't have that strong science background coming in, if you don't have that foundation, you're not going to be able to do the job. Simple as that. But you've got to go beyond that to work there, to do this. Not to be over at FWI or even here in academia or something, you can emphasize. But even there, I would say that to obtain funding, to apply your science, and it's all about applied science these days, you want to understand what the laws, rules, and regulations are within which your science operates.
Something to kind of add to that, too, is it's not a sexy component of science, but there's a lot of housekeeping skills that I had to quickly get up to speed on when I left here and took this job. Working with budgets and managing and organizing field efforts and research projects. And I think that depending on how your research lab is structured, sometimes you may not be involved in that side of the work that you're doing. It does benefit you to pay a little bit of attention to how did you come up with the budget, how did you play with the numbers, how are you organizing this project to deliver the research project that product at the end. So a little bit of housekeeping, paying attention to that is valuable.
Molly, I know that you touched on this, but even though it's called the U.S. Geological Survey, it's diverse now. It's biology, it's physics,
Well,
it's...
Our particular center over there is a little odd even within the U.S. Geological Survey. We are part of the Coastal and Marine Program within USGS. So there's a lot of different diverse groups, you're right. We have coral, we have physical oceanography, the hurricane research group is in our facility, biologist, microbiologist. So we have a lot of integrated science as opposed to just having a strict geology component.
They do maps,
We do mapping and climate, yeah. Almost all of the programs.
A lot of education stuff you do.
We try to
And
do
publications.
as much outreach as we possibly can afford to stick in the middle of projects.
Setting up the educator.
Yes. So since I'm in education, it's a little different. I think one of the skills I needed to develop quickly was communicating to a wide age range. Our program has 3-year-olds through high school seniors. So taking one concept and helping 3-year-olds and 18-year-olds understand those is very different, as well as with technology developing, managing social media, using that to your advantage, using technology to educate my students and their parents as well, communicating current research and why it's important and why the ocean is a huge resource for us and important was a skill I had to develop pretty quickly. And I think probably students these days are probably more involved in that. It wasn't so much there when I was here, but being able to communicate across a wide age range and wide audience is a huge skill. And we had some of that, but I think now with social media and the internet being so widely accessible, something to continue to develop.
I was just going to say, I failed to point out that Jenna is the most recently elected to the president of the board for 2015-2016 of the Florida Marine Science Educator Association.
And they're hosting a conference in Orlando.
Yes.
Say they are. We are.
We
hosting
are.
a conference in Orlando for the national group. So.
That'll be in June.
And so there's a research track associated with that conference, and so you might talk to Jenna, and we can direct you to the appropriate person who's coordinating that.
I would say not necessarily things that are available here that maybe I didn't take as much advantage of as I could have. Well, first of all, one thing I had experienced in before, but I think Jay might be the one that sets up this oftentimes is a small boating course through the U.S. Coast Guard. And so you don't want to be a marine scientist who doesn't know how to drive a boat. So make sure to try and get some experience with that before you get out of grad school, especially if you want to end up working for some small companies or, state government where that would be part of the job, going out and driving a boat. Also kind of taking advantage, like I said, I got involved in lots of research trips, but lots of those were out and back for the day. And, I ended up filling out applications for jobs where there was a question, have you been at sea for more than like 5 or 7 days straight? And when I had to answer no, because, we were working the Keys back and forth out to sea every day, I was like, gosh, that's really annoying, because I feel like I'd have no problem doing that. But, having to check that no box was not good. So, I got those experiences later on. And I would say I wish I had gotten more experience in grant writing. So that was a benefit of having a job ready to go, a project ready to go, but also I didn't get that experience in writing my own grants. So take advantage of that, and all the experience that you have here that the college has to offer. And then I would say a skill set that's very important is, not only the scientific and the technical writing, which has, of course, its own style that you'll need to use for publishing and writing your master's and dissertation, but being able to translate that for a general public audience and thinking of, how to speak in a way that folks can understand. And you have some great professors, Dr. Chambers and Dr. Mitchum are doing a really great job with that, with communicating complex sea level rise to a layman's audience. So really, it's not always, about, sometimes less is more. So a lot of us are moving away from having much on our PowerPoints at all and trying to move to a conversation. So I'd say all those are really important.
What about statistics?
What about statistics? I was going to add that I wish I'd taken more statistics, but yeah, there was a lot of good course offerings, I think, that I kind of skipped over to, I was able to finish up with what I had, but I wish I'd had statistics. I wish I had taken the electron microscopy course too, because that looked really great, but it never quite lined up right for me. So statistics?
I had loads of statistics when I got here, so I was already pretty comfortable in that. Modeling, that's a whole different thing.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the job you're going into. I've had a fair amount of statistics here. I went at USF and got it from Dr. Cowell, who was very good. And but it did come in handy when the phytoplankton and plankton world, the non-parametric statistics was pretty important. And actually, my first job at the city, we used it quite a bit, trying to look at nitrogen limitation and the phytoplankton assemblages. So yeah, depending on the job, it could be very important. I think you need to have a general understanding just going out there, and certainly it would help to get that basic background.
As many statistics courses as you can possibly take, yes.
What about GIS? You all use GIS? Last year, we just had a few people that said they use GIS a lot.
GIS, I mean, my job, thank goodness, I don't have to really do GIS, but I have several people working with me and for me who do GIS. It's critical nowadays. Everything's GIS. Everything's related to a geospatial database. And so doesn't mean you have to be the expert, but you need to understand what it can do and how you can use it. So yeah, I mean, GIS is critical. If you've got that skill, you've got an extra notch up on maybe someone else who doesn't have it. So, anyone else?
Yeah, I didn't take any GIS courses, but then I did, before my current position, I was at the Department of Environmental Protection, Tampa Bay Aquatic Preserves office, so kind of taught myself some GIS there to make the maps and do, seagrass monitoring and different island habitat maps and so on that I needed to do. So I think, if you have the opportunity to take a class, it's great. And, just with the with the technology that we have available to us today, it's like we're all kind of basically using some version of GIS probably on our phones every day without realizing it. So it's just kind of getting a little more technical.
Do you guys use social media now? Because I know in the beginning,
Yeah.
you had to go through 12 people before a press release went out, and it went through the press office, and nothing was on. But now everything's Twitter, and a lot of people have Facebook posts, so you post a lot of stuff on Facebook, and it doesn't have to meet the same muster as maybe what I was used to in government, where it had to be approved by many people.
So I'll start with that, and then, so with Pinellas Sea Grant, that's my hashtag or whatever. So I was doing, so I was on Facebook and Twitter, and now we have a countywide Instagram, and actually, it's interesting because you've got to be on all it's hard to measure the impact, but you have to be there. Yeah. And so, the College of Marine Science is now, on Twitter and Facebook and so on. What I have found doing it over, the past 5 years is that Facebook has actually changed. So a kind of page that most of us would have would be a fan page where people go in and they like it. And that's moved, they changed the algorithm, so really any post only reaches like 10% of the people that has liked your page or less, unless you can start a really engaging conversation or unless you pay to promote it. And also, if I make a post and I tag Fish and Wildlife or U.S. Geological Survey that I'm doing work with them, they don't really know that, and so they can't really cross-promote it. It's just not done in the same way. So Twitter is great in that way, and that if I tag, NOAA fisheries that I'm, have a new publication related to them, then they usually know, they can retweet it, they can like it. So somehow I came into Twitter not knowing anything about it, but I think I've found that to have a lot more utility in terms of, it seems to be good at least in interacting with the other folks at the other agencies that are doing their social media accounts as well. So I think it increases awareness of what everyone's doing. And, every now and again you get, a repost from, National NOAA or National Sea Grant, and you get all these, people. So it's hard to figure out, what the value is and what your audience is. I think it's quite different. If I have a room, of this many people at one of my evening seminars and say, how many of you are on Twitter? One person might raise the hand. So it's a different audience, but I think it's important to engage. And it's ever evolving, and the kids you got to keep track of the kids because they're like done with Facebook. They're on Snapchat, which I don't know, some of you guys are probably on Snapchat. I'm not sure I'm ever going to Snapchat, but anyway, so that's what I want to do with that.
Our communications office uses a lot of social media. I don't use it personally. I just don't have the time to keep up with it. But I do think it's a very valuable attribute to have. And I would think for a younger audience, it's pretty much inherent in your lifestyle. So I'm not sure it's something you actually have to go out and learn. It's just something you do.
Yeah, I think I have the same response as Bill. Maybe we're from the same generation, but our communications department deals with a lot of that. They use social media quite a bit. The process to get a news release or press release out is pretty simple. I usually just tell someone in communications, they put it up. So it's pretty quick now for me. Used to be much different 5 or 10 years ago, but it's pretty quick at the county. At my level, I'm pretty able to get something out pretty quick and simply, so.
I'm a Fed. There's no quick about anything involved in social media. We have to, as a federal agency, we have to deal with a lot of restrictions in terms of what we can release and the methods that we use to release. So while we are very restricted in that realm, we tend to sort of, not underground, but in our own personal accounts, communicate with scientists and with our peers. We have to be careful how we're posting things and what we say. But most of us will have personal accounts that we're able to interact with scientists in other realms, more so than our official agency. So, and there's a side note here. The people that you are sitting next to right now, and the people that you meet in the hallways and that you have lunch with here, those are going to be your peers. I never knew that our group as a unit would stay sort of as a group even beyond our graduate career. We are scattered all over the world, but we still have that same interaction, and social media has been a valuable tool for that, to keep in touch with all of the students I went with. They are now professors and regulators, and they've got all different jobs. I still keep in touch with those and use social media. And they are an amazing resource for communication, for problem solving, for new technologies, for keeping us abreast of what we're all doing. So that is an incredibly valuable thing.
In education, we obviously use social media because it's an audience it's a method our students use as well as our parents. We kind of treat it as a promotional tool and as well as an educational tool. But also there's legal issues. So if you are working with students, you know, you have to make sure that whatever organization you're with, you're clear on the policy, what's the age, are there students that could not be posted, there's adults that might not want to be posted. So you do have to be aware of those types of things. And then also you have to hold yourself to a rigorous standard, at least in education. You cannot post anything personally or professionally that would be called into question ever. So that's pretty important to think about. It's everywhere, and you know it never disappears. So it's pretty important that you are really cognizant of that.
Questions?
Go ahead.
The question I'm curious about is I'm interested in conservation and management and actually work with a little as a contractor. I've gotten mixed reviews, and I think it's interesting the answers I usually get. I'm currently a master's student, and I kind of debate if I should go towards my PhD, if it would help for in that career path. And so far, I've learned that everyone who has a master's also needs a master's. Everyone with a PhD has answered get a PhD. So I think everyone's a little bit biased towards that. But in the conservation management, I haven't seen it as a requirement, but I don't think it would hurt. I don't know, I'm just kind of curious what your point of view would be in hiring for that kind of position.
Is that for everyone, or?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking specifically, Bill, I'm thinking kind of at the Fed level. I've had a few friends who have a PhD. It's hurt them because of the GS level, you have to pay so much. So I've got in.
Good question.
I would say the PhD is far less valuable in a management context than it would be in a research context. Most of the folks over there that are working in fisheries or protected resources or habitat do not have doctorate degrees.
And I guess I'll also point out with this generation, is I've noticed, you know, I feel like nothing's ever going to, before you could get a job with bachelor's, and you can't now, when people get their master's, you can't get a job with master's, you have to get a PhD. So do you see that too?
Well, I do think that the PhD removes the shackles. So you don't ever have to worry about running up against an academic credentials wall if you've got that PhD in your back pocket. I would say that at an entry level, it's not going to do you much good, but 10 or 15 years down the road, it may make a huge difference. So it kind of depends upon where you want to go. Whereas in an academic setting or a research setting, it's going to serve you right off the bat. So it depends upon, really where you see your career going and how you want it to develop. Do you want to be an upper level? Well, if you want to be upper level in NOAA, get a law degree, seriously. But if you want to be a mid-level manager, if you want to be a branch chief or a regional administrator or something like that, it probably would be better to have your doctorate, though it's mostly prestige and not so much application. If you think you might be in this for a while, then move on to something else, I can't predict that for you. I know this, so I got my doctorate because I wanted my shackles removed. I didn't want things to limit me in whatever career path I chose. I knew that I didn't have to worry about that anymore. But it's an investment, and it's an investment in time, and you have to make that trade-off. You might spend 6, 8, 10 years getting that doctorate. Well, where would you be if you'd invested that 6, 8, 10 years working as a manager with the National Marine Fisheries Service, moving up? You may never catch up to that. You may come out ahead. There's a lot of math involved in that I don't have at my fingertips.
Cost benefit.
Right.
Consider that aspect too. Yeah.
Did you?
No.
Okay.
Any other, what else?
No, I was just going to back that up, is sometimes it does come down to a return on investment. I stopped at my master's because this was actually my second career. So I didn't want to be out of the workforce too much longer because I had retirement issues to consider as well. And so for what I wanted to do, I knew the master's would build on what I had in previous. If you find something that you really love, a research track that you're really interested in, and you do have the time and to set aside for that, it is very valuable later. And even in the federal system, we do tend to, even if we're not using the exact research skills that we learned, the PhD does carry a lot of weight behind your name in certain areas.
So in the county's case, it's depending on the job, but we don't have that many PhDs. We have a few in our division. But I did hire one a couple of years ago because I had a very specific need in coastal management. And I interviewed several people. Most of them had masters. One had a PhD right up the line of what I needed. And so that person got the job because they had that PhD. And it, going shoe to shoe, or whatever you want to call it, with the regulatory agencies, it's nice to have that credentialed person working on your behalf. It just adds a little bit of credibility to your argument, and it does. There are certain cases where it's really good to have, but by and large, at the county where you've got multiple disciplines, a lot of our people, I'd say probably a third or half of our division, or probably a third of our building are probably master's level, and then the rest are bachelor's, one PhD. But so there are times when it's valuable, and if there's a certain area you want to stick in. Now, what happens is if you want to expand out upper level management where you've got to know a lot of different things, it might hurt you. They might think you're too specific. So.
Does that help?
Yeah,
You know what you want to do now?
Yeah.
What a producer.
PhD, I don't know. I think,
I got a coin.
yeah.
You're going to need a lot of them.
Yeah. There's a question over here.
Yeah, so management skills and soft skills have come up a couple times. I know I've seen a couple courses on like Coursera and places like this on like management skills, like Greenbelt, even Groupon's coming out with these packages. Would you recommend taking any of that? Is it that important, or is it something you can just learn along the way?
They have courses on, did you say management or soft skills?
Management skills, that includes budgeting, lean management, a bunch of stuff.
I would say, I know working with St. Petersburg College now, they've actually incorporated a lot of technical training programs, and I think they're, it might be a place to look that they might, have something to offer that would be kind of an evening class or something that would kind of complement something else. But yeah, you said Groupon or something? Or
There are Groupons because there are companies that specialize in just doing these sort of courses.
Yeah.
So basically, my question is it worth it to go through something like that, or?
I would say to do the good research on whoever you're going to take a course with, but I would say associating, something with a good, solid academic name or something would be.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I will just say that I worked on a federal program. I never thought I would take another course again after I finished my PhD. I was just so done. And I was in this room full of engineers, and they all had PMP after their name, which is Program Management Professional. And I was like, what the heck is that? And they were throwing around this jargon. And I have a PMP now because, right. And so I'm just saying.
Did you get a Groupon on it?
No, I didn't. I didn't. So it is a credential that in some areas, especially in the federal government, I've applied for a couple positions with NOAA. I don't remember if Pinellas County had any sort of desire for that, but PMP, Six Sigma, black belt or green belt.
Yes.
It depends upon the area that you're going into in the Fed. Some groups like that, so if you're DoD oriented, they may really want that. So I think